They tried to jail a president and Republican Party leaders and American citizens for disputing an election. They censored Americans in the greatest attack on free speech rights in the history of our republic. And then, of course, we had this terrible corruption at the top with the Biden crime family and so much other misconduct.
The left has been waging a long war on America's foundational freedoms. And our next guest has been fighting back with facts, lawsuits, and fearless truth for over 2 decades. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch and author of Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. He joins us now. Tom, great to see you. Great job on the book, number one. And number two, hey, a big victory recently for Judicial Watch. You led the charge in getting 5 million dirty names removed from the voter rolls, including 1 million, Tom, in New York City alone. First of all, what are dirty names, and why is this so important for election integrity to get them removed?
Well, thank you, Eric. It's kind of a long ball game, right? And we're scoring the runs in ways that are truly historic now. Federal law requires the states to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. And if they don't, they can be sued. And that's what Judicial Watch did in places like New York, California, Kentucky, all over the country, really. And in New York, they quickly settled our case. And a few years ago, they removed about 450,000. Another 450 plus thousand they just confirmed to us recently. And when you look at the numbers generally, it's well over 1 million names have just been removed in New York City alone. And by dirty names, these are people who have moved away, died, or otherwise become ineligible. People are moving out of New York all the time, and or people just even move out of the specific voting location where they are at, in terms of, let's say from New York City to the suburbs. And those names need to be tracked. And that's something that New York literally wasn't doing until Judicial Watch sued. Same in California, 1.2 million names recently confirmed just last year as having been removed in LA County alone. And we've got litigation ongoing because there are many millions of more names that need to be removed, probably tens of millions at this point.
Wow. Tom, it's insane. And I mean, thank God, it seems a long way off. But look, the midterms, November 2026, it's really not that far off. Hey, speaking of which, you mentioned California a minute ago. Look, you have a measure now, or Judicial Watch is going against the state of California, these attempts in the state of California to count ballots up to 7 days after an election wraps. Tell us more about that.
Well, President Trump highlighted this issue in a recent executive order. Federal law sets an election day, not an election week, not an election month. And in 18, 19 states, they're counting ballots that arrive for up to, in Illinois, 14 days after election day. California at 7 days. So we've been suing in these states to try to get them to follow federal law. And we had a big success in the Fifth Circuit, which oversees Mississippi, where they said, obviously, counting ballots after election day, ballots that arrive after election day, is contrary to federal law. We just sued in California to vindicate the federal law there. They count 7 days, as you note. The ballots can come in upwards of 7 days after election day. And our lawsuit notes that there were two Republican members of Congress who were winning on election day, and they lost as a result of counting ballots that arrived after election day. So this has real consequences, this unlawful ballot counting.
A lot of people watching are probably saying, how did we get to this point where it is such a train wreck in our electoral system? Votes being counted days and days after the election is wrapped. It's insane.
Well, a lot of the worst of it occurred around COVID. COVID was a pretext to change the rules in a way that undermine election integrity. If you're going to mail tens of millions of ballots, it becomes pretty easy to justify, letting them get there after election day. They drop them in the mail on election day. Isn't that good enough? And as the court in the Fifth Circuit found or observed, Well, why have any deadline at all? Maybe you can just count ballots for years. So
Yeah.
it makes a certain amount of sense. And frankly, if you're opposed to it, in my experience, if you're opposed to cleaning up the voting rolls or voter ID or making sure that we have an election day as opposed to an election, I guess, year, it seems to me you kind of want the system to be set up in a way that allows you to steal elections. It's this extremist wing of the
Yeah.
Democratic Party, the far left, that doesn't like the idea of honest elections. Heck, I used to say, Eric, that they want to be able to steal elections. I think their goal is to end elections. I
Yeah.
really do.
These radical left-wing runaway judges trying to block the Trump administration's agenda, trying to get people or stop deportations of criminal illegal aliens. Tom, the list goes on. What can be done to thwart these activist judges? Can anything be done?
Well, the first thing that needs to be done is you fight them in court, which is what the administration's doing. People have a right to sue. Sometimes the lawsuits have no merit. Sometimes they do. Rarely do you get a complete victory as soon as you sue a federal agency or an administration like the left has been doing. I mean, the problem isn't the lawsuits. That's a problem that can be managed by a judiciary that's doing its job. The problem is these judges breaking the rules, more or less, to give everything these leftists want within a minute filing the lawsuit. And that's the challenge Trump has. He's trying to get this work done. And all it takes is one judge in one jurisdiction to overthrow his power to conduct foreign policy, his power as commander in chief, his power to protect national security. That's the crisis that's erupting as a result of these judges doing things they shouldn't be doing in the ordinary course. Now, of course, he's appealing all of these cases, more or less, some of which have already gone before the Supreme Court, and that's changing day by day. And of course, the big controversy is over whether judges such as these can be impeached. Now, there is a power to impeach judges for activism under the Constitution. The framers specifically put that in there, not only to make sure that judges are honest and ethical and they're not corrupt and they can be removed if they are, but to protect the public and the Constitution against judges that usurp the powers of the other branches, engage in judicial activism. They said it was the complete security against that. That's a quote from the founders in the Federalist Papers. And it's rarely been used. It was used only once effectively in 1804. But the reason that people are talking about it more now is because we've had this unprecedented attack through judicial abuse or judicial coups of the powers of the presidency and relatedly to Congress.
Yeah. Tom, speaking of which, tell us about your great book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. You used the word crisis a minute ago, and Tom, you break down the state of play and what we're up against in the book. Tell us more about it.
It was a close run thing in the last 4 years for our constitutional republic. They tried to jail a president and Republican Party leaders and American citizens for disputing an election. They censored Americans in the greatest attack on free speech rights in the history of our republic. And then, of course, we had this terrible corruption at the top with the Biden crime family and so much other misconduct in terms of the government engaging in gain of function research, funding it in China, and then getting very nervous when Americans started complaining that maybe this resulted in COVID happening. All of that has been exposed in large measure thanks to Judicial Watch. And we go through, and obviously I make some comments on it in the book, but what's devastating about the book for the left is it relies on government documents. It relies on what we uncovered from the record. And so you can argue with our conclusions. You can't argue with the documents. And the documents show our republic was under attack. And if there's anything I would advise President Trump to do is to make sure those responsible are held fully accountable. It's an emergency because if they're not, these same agencies, for example, will just be used again by the next occupants of the Oval Office to go after not only him, but other Americans in a way we've never seen before in American history. in terms of the FBI, DOJ, and other agencies being used to suppress the public as opposed to protect the public.
Yeah, Tom, one of the things I love about your work at Judicial Watch is you have the primary documents. It's all there, all the evidence. It's in the book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril. Folks, you can pick it up, Amazon.com, wherever books are sold. Tom, great job as always. Keep up the great work, my friend. God bless. We'll see you again soon. Stacklebeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.